Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and I'm talking astrology. On this video, I'm going to be talking about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which indeed is one of the most important astrological events of 2024. So I won't waste time, I'll get going. And if some of you are very keen to know exactly when this conjunction takes place, it'll be the 20th if you're west of Greenwich, so to speak, and the 21st if you're east of Greenwich. And it will be 2:30. Oh, let me just get that exactly right. 2:25 UTC, and you can adjust it from there accordingly. And of course, I will be looking at the chart of this conjunction because it allows us to see whatever else is going on at the time. And that is really important in terms of this particular Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, because it's happening at a really, really important astrological period. It's not on its own. We had a solar eclipse on the 8th of April. Before that, on the 25th of March, we had a lunar eclipse. And I'm actually recording this on the 7th of April, so the day before the great American solar eclipse, which of course I've done a video about. But the reason I give you this is that so much is going on and so much has gone on since March the 25th in terms of global events and figures, notable figures in the world. And I'm expecting a lot more kind of drama and very powerful developments between now and the time of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and a little bit beyond that. So yes, as I said, it's not just the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, but it's also the fact that on the day of that Sun Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, the Sun is squaring Pluto. So we've got a real double whammy. It's like a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction with bells on. And if you remember my previous video, which was about the solar eclipse, I talked about the comet that we'll be able to see at that time. That hasn't been around for 70 odd years. So, it's spectacular. We're seeing fireworks in the sky, and we're seeing fireworks in terms of the events that are going on. So let me talk just very briefly about Jupiter and Uranus, and I'm going to come back and look at that again a little bit further along on the video. But we're working with two very powerful planets. Jupiter is the biggest planet in the solar system, and accordingly, of course, in myth, Jupiter was the king of the gods. And when we look at Uranus, we're looking at the most quirky, capricious planet in the solar system. It's not even going around orbiting the sun as all the other planets do, including ourselves, Earth, with our poles kind of upright, so to speak. What Uranus is doing is lying on its side. It's got the equators facing upwards, if you get what I mean. So right from the get-go, Uranus is this planet that doesn't conform to the rest of the solar system. It has a very, very erratic kind of orbit as well. And so when we look at these two planets together, we think about Jupiter and its keyword principle of expansion and growth. And then we think of Uranus being the principle of revolution and quirkiness, really. So we've got a very powerful explosion of those two kind of entities. And I'll go on to analyze that a little bit further on. But every time we get two big planets coming together in a conjunction, they begin a new cycle. And of course, we saw this with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction back in 2020. That began a huge cycle. And always at a Saturn-Pluto conjunction, we get some incredibly difficult kind of events. And we don't need to look back very far into our recent history to think of the pandemic, for instance, as perhaps the biggest thing that came out of that Sun-Pluto conjunction, which changed the world. It changed all of us in some degree. So we look at Jupiter and Uranus. They begin their cycle on the 21st of April this year. And it will take about 14 years for them to go around the zodiac, so to speak, and come together again. Well, it's really for Jupiter to go around the zodiac because Uranus moves much, much more slowly. So the two planets come into conjunction about every 14 years, and that's worth remembering. And I'm going to be looking at that in a little minute in chart form so that we get a picture of it. But of course, when Jupiter and Uranus come together in about, at a quarter of the way along, they will square each other. Jupiter will square the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And then, of course, it will oppose itself and then square it again. So Jupiter is the faster moving planet. It's moving around in its 12-year cycle. And we're going to be seeing sort of different kind of arrangements with it as it goes through its cycle together with Uranus. So let me take a look at this little diagram I've created, because it really will help us see the pattern of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and, and sort of the years that were important and why those years were important. So if we look at the diagram that I've put together here for you to have a look at, you'll see that I've written the signs of the zodiac on the sort of inner circle, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and so on. And in the outer circle, you'll find years, 1997, 1983, and so on. And these, of course, are the years of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction previously and the degree areas that were involved at the time. So on this one, we can see that the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, 2149 is written here, but 2150, it depends on the exact, your calculations, how you're doing this, but it's a minute of difference here. But this is the degree of the conjunction in 2024. If we look above it, we'll see 25 Taurus 38 written, and that was the degree of the conjunction in 1941, because yes, 83 years ago, Jupiter and Uranus were in conjunction in the sign of Taurus. So, of course, if you are 83 years old, you are having not only your Uranus return, but your Jupiter-Uranus return. So we're thinking about all those possibilities for revolution within your life, huge change, and all sorts of things happening to you that mark a very new era of your life. But if we go back and we look at 1941, what can 1941 tell us about the forthcoming Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in April of this year? Well, guess what? In 1941, Conrad Zuse completed the development of the world's first computer. And that's really, really important because Uranus is on planet of technology. It's the planet of the digital world, so to speak, the planet of revolution. Also, what happened around this time, Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, 1941, we were, of course, at war. World War II was happening. It was in its second year. And it was during 1941 that Roosevelt approved of the development of the atomic bomb. And uranium, plutonium, these are ingredients of the atomic bomb. So again, we look at Jupiter-Uranus and we think about that explosion, this mighty explosion of energy, then we can really see how the atomic bomb had a relevance to this particular Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus in 1941. Now, also important in that year, and there were many, many important things that happened in 1941, but I just cherry-picked a few just to give you a feel of what was going on. But the Japanese invaded or bombed Pearl Harbor. Sorry, invade Pearl Harbor, they bombed it. And of course, that brought America into World War II. And so these were really, really significant events that occurred in 1941. So we will have a knock-on effect of these. And I think it's quite interesting. Remember, I referred to the atomic bomb and the development of that. Roosevelt authorizing it. So there's a resonance with the idea of atomic power. I think it is very interesting that, of course, this year, Oppenheimer, the film that came out, won all those Oscars, was all about that development. And so we get these bounces when we have a return of something. And, having said, if you're 83 years old, you've got a Jupiter-Uranus return happening, then there are all those resonances to that era, if you like, that may have a relevance in your own life, in your own personal history. If we dot around this chart a little bit, let's go anti-clockwise and look at the previous Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Now, that occurred in 2010, 2011, and that was the time of the Arab Spring. And I think we can all remember what the Arab Spring was like. There were all these incredible kind of uprisings, and democracy demanded to democracy was demanded from these autocratic, authoritarian regimes. And it was a time of great hope for the people, as it were. And that really is the quintessential Jupiter-Uranus combo as well. It's this cry freedom. It is about liberty. It is about independence. So that's so important in that era, 2010, 2011. Also in 2010, 2011, of course, we were in that period post the subprime crash when the economies, most economies were in recession. It was a very, very difficult period for the global economy. And I think most significant about the 2010, 2011 period with Jupiter and Uranus, as we can see in Pisces and in Aries, 0 degrees Aries, 27 degrees of Pisces, we're looking at for instance, the US credit rating was downgraded. It went from being a AAA to an AA+, and that was absolutely incredible. So there are things related to the economy, as well as the idea of liberation and freedom with the Arab Spring. But there was also a deep financial crisis. Actually, I'll come to that a little bit later. That's really in reference to 1997, not 2010. But there is always some kind of financial development on a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that is really, really significant. If we go back then a little bit further to 1997 and the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Aquarius, around 5 degrees of Aquarius, when you think about it, Uranus is one of the rulers of Aquarius. It's a modern ruler of Aquarius, the old ruler being Saturn, but they both have a relevance to the sign of Aquarius. So when we think we got a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Aquarius, that was always going to be extremely significant. And I think, again, looking at finances, we could see that across East Asia, there was a deep, deep financial crisis. Also in 1997, I'm sure you remember, we had the death of the Princess of Wales, the accident that took Princess Diana away from us. So we look here at the shock value, the shock of the new, the shock of developments. We think about Jupiter, we think of power, we think of royalty. So we've got this idea in 1997, how this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction played into events. Science, we've got scientific breakthroughs with a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And in 1997, we had Dolly the sheep. This was the first mammal to be cloned. And that was an extraordinary breakthrough in scientific terms. So this is what we're playing with when we think about all these relative events related to the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Now, if we go back a little bit more, we come to 1983. And 1983, this was just really in the wake of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of that time. So there was so much going on in the world to do with really the reforming and the reshaping of territory. Now that really, I would say, is a Saturn-Pluto thing, more than a Jupiter-Uranus event, but nonetheless, it is particularly, it's particularly revolutionary, and it is about why do revolutions happen? They want to change the order, so orders get changed big time. We move around to through the zodiac again, and we come to 1968, 1969, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Libra, 0 degrees to 4 degrees of Libra. Well, this is spectacular in its event, and there's only really one event I want to talk about in terms of 1969, because on the day of the third Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, at 0 degrees, 8 minutes, I think, if my memory serves me well enough, that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, man walked on the moon. So if that doesn't completely epitomize this conjunction, it is about, breaking through barriers, extraordinary results of exploration, and also the sense really with Jupiter that we want to exceed, we want to go further, we want to go beyond. And here with Uranus, did we ever go beyond? Yes, we did. We went to the moon and we walked on the moon. And again, I think we've got a lot of resonances this year, 2024, with return journeys to the moon. There are several countries, India, the US, Japan, all returning to the moon. So this is definitely a bounce on that Jupiter-Uranus configuration, on the sorts of things that it can bring about. I'm going to move on round the corner here, round the corner. There's no corner in a circle, is there? But we come to the 1954-1955 Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Cancer. And that too was a very, very interesting period of time when you think we were 10 years after the war and there was enormous growth and change. I mean, our lives were changed completely by technology coming into our kitchens, wherever it came. Jupiter was, making for very, very big advances. And of course, as I said, if you're born in any of these years, 1997, 1983, 1968, 69, 1954, 55, you are having this return of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and it will bring out whatever natally it is meant to do. It depends where it is in your natal chart. Observe, go through your life thinking how this conjunction may apply to you, because it's the conjunction of genius in a way. It is to do with that flash of brilliance, that kind of flash understanding of things, and the ability to take giant leaps. So that you'll find that in your own chart, born in these particular years, see which house it is in, see if it's relevant, because right now with this 2024 Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, there's going to be some kind of resonance with that in your own chart, a bounce, as I've called it, and that makes it both a very exciting time for you, if this is apparent for you, but also a very destabilizing period, because we can't just look at a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and see only good things. There is also a lot of instability as well. So as you can see, as we've gone round the circle looking at the years of importance, I mean, it's not as in-depth perhaps as I would like to be. I think I'm going to write a lot more about this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, so we get a little bit more of a historical feel for it. But it gives you a sort of glimpse of why this is so important, what the benefits particularly are, but also the disbenefits. And I think if we go back even further into history, we go back to 1775, the year before the American Statement of Independence, Declaration of Independence. Jupiter and Uranus were together then in Gemini, not in Taurus. But I think, again, quintessentially, what is in that vow? Equality, liberty, everybody equal. And that has something to do with the Jupiter-Uranus cri de coeur, so we might say. And it's also a time, that period of history in the mid-1770s, 1775, there was a huge amount of revolution, many revolutions going on across the world, all seeking to take down old orders and to bring about new orders. And of course, I think if we move a little bit further forward and we come to 1856 and another Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, this was a period of the Victorian era. And again, we had a big kind of developments in industry, in how things function. When you think life became very different in the Victorian period, renowned for their buildings and for all the sorts of new developments that brought man really in a way from, I don't want to say the Dark Ages, because it wasn't the Dark Ages, but it was a time of great revolution in terms of the things that changed our lives. That's definitely the hallmark of a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So let's have a look at the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on April the 20th, 21st, and see how it looks in the context of everything else that's going on, because that really is important. And we'll see that as well when I take you through sign by sign. You'll see why the setup is quite important to the expression of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So let's have a look at the chart here. And I have set it for London, and the reason I sort of set it for London was that I wanted to be able to see that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in either at the bottom of the chart or rising or on the midheaven. I wanted to see it in a prominent place. It isn't exactly on the I see here, but we can sort of see it at the very base 6 o'clock position of this circle. And so what is interesting, and I'm sure you'll spot this, we could see this kind of cluster of planets. We start with Pluto just above the ascendant, and we work anti-clockwise round Saturn, Mars, Neptune, the North Node, Mercury, Venus, Chiron, the Sun, Jupiter and Uranus. It ends with Uranus, so Pluto and Uranus are flanking this little cluster formation. At the time of this exact Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, the moon is in the final degree of Virgo. It's about to head into Libra. So we can see again, like we have done in some of the other incidents that I've talked about on my Friday Bite recently, and and also the lunar eclipse video. The moon is the fastest moving body here. It moves 13 degrees in a day. So you can see in a 28-day period, it does a complete revolution of the zodiac. But the moon here, right outside on its own, looking at this cluster of planets, is almost like the vehicle, the vessel through which all of this material clustered together can express itself. So it's an important feature of this. And to my mind, because the moon, as we can see here, is trining Pluto, and it's also trining the Uranus and Jupiter conjunction. It's a bit of a wide kind of thing, but it's in there. We could see that there is some kind of really good kind of, I don't want to use this word energy, I hate it so much, but the dynamic of all the new, the different, the unexpected. There is a good side to all of this, and we will certainly see a lot of great and good developments coming out of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, looking at the way this is conflagrated. Can we say that word? Oh, I think we can. Configured. I think that's what I was trying to say. So we can also see in the circle here, we see the sun at 1 degree of Taurus. That's the big circle with a little dot in it. It is exactly square Pluto. And by the end of the day, on the 21st of April, it will be exactly square Pluto. So we have the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and the Sun-Pluto square. Now, I'm going to take you back also to around about the 20th of January. think about all the events that happened around that period of time. There were certainly a lot of things happening in the world of royalty, if you remember, a lot of shocks and surprises that were happening at that period of time. So we have a reference to that when the Sun is now square Pluto, where it was when it was a Sun-Pluto conjunction. Remember, I talked about the big planetary cycles, the Jupiter-Uranus cycle, the Saturn-Neptune cycle, the Saturn-Pluto cycle, which are huge cycles that take years to complete. There's also other cycles like the Sun-Pluto conjunction, for instance, exact on the 20th of January. Now we've got a square coming up. So we have a reference, a resonance that takes us back to that January period, and we will see that happening at the time of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction as well. And I am most certainly expecting to have some very important developments regarding the king, for instance, because the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction there, 2150 of Taurus, almost 22, is exactly opposite the king's sun in Scorpio. So one thing that comes off the top of my head as I'm talking to you now is that Charles and Camilla have agreed, and it's all set now, it's in motion to go to Australia. And I think the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, the journey to Australia, is a wonderful expression of that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So we may see something good coming out of that in terms of the royals expanding their goodwill, let's put it that way. But of course, we can also expect some shocks and surprises. The Jupiter-Uranus conjunction could be said to be the shock of the new, the shock of news, the reverberations, the earth-shattering developments that are around at that time. So let's also look at what's going on. If we go anti-clockwise from rising Pluto in Aquarius, we come to Saturn, 15 of Pisces, Mars, 22 of Pisces. So in fact, Mars has already been in conjunction with Saturn. Indeed, it was in conjunction not very long after the solar eclipse. So we've been through a lot of difficult experiences. As I said, I'm recording this before the solar eclipse, but certainly that Mars-Saturn conjunction is going to be a heavy weight. We're going to feel the heavy weight of news around this particular time. But what Mars is doing is getting ever nearer Neptune, and it will conjoin Neptune on the 29th of April. But it's in the mix, not only Jupiter and Uranus, the Sun squaring Pluto, we could look at Venus conjunct Chiron, we're also looking at a Mars-Neptune conjunction. So there's a lot of confusion going on at the same time as this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is happening. So we can expect to be confused by the big global events that are happening. Yes, there may be great and good events and wonderful breakthroughs. Remember, I use those 3 B words for Uranus and put Jupiter there as well. You've got them in on steroids. So we've got breakthroughs, breakdowns, and breakups. And we think of the digital world. We think of what that might mean. And of course, Mercury is still retrograde, as you can see here. So the problems with communications and the digital world and spying and goodness knows, all this kind of cocktail of very, very powerful stuff going on. It is about revelation, but it is also about, the results of what can happen if things have been underground and kept underground. We've already had one earthquake, really big earthquake in Taiwan. And there was a sort of weaker little tremor going on, which was felt in New York. So we could see that the earth is moving as well in response to these configurations. We can see a physical manifestation, and we've also got figurative developments as well. So earthquakes, shock announcements, all sorts of things that we didn't expect to happen. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on because, I suppose what I also want to do is to look at a little bit more at why this conjunction is so important in terms of the world. And in fact, maybe I'll deal with that now. Maybe come back to me and we can see what I think are important and why this conjunction is impacting different countries, leaders. There will be all sorts of things to do with leadership going on at this time. We might see changes of government and changes of leaders, so that we've got a new influence. We think about Jupiter as the king of the gods. We think about Uranus as this change bringer. And we see new people coming to prominence at this time who are different. They're promoting different things. So the rise of leaders at this time, the change in politics. We might also see some peace breakthroughs. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I know it doesn't look very much like it. You know, here I am recording to you on the 7th of April, and we have just had some problems in Israel, Gaza, and there are talks now of opening up more humanitarian avenues. So maybe this will progress forward, and by the time of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, we're going to see some really big and important developments, hopefully in a good way. And the reason I say this and mention this time is that Israel's sun is 23 degrees of a Taurus, so the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is on that sun. So that is such a statement of wanting their liberty, wanting their democracy, wanting their space, and really needing very powerfully to declare their independence. Remember, we saw that 1775, 1776. So here it comes again, that cry to be rid of fears and oppression of whatever, the Hamas has represented. But we can also see the desire for change, for a change in order. Are we also going to see Netanyahu perhaps stepping down, resigning, so that we've got a new order coming in to Israel's government? And of course, with a new order come new kinds of decisions. So I think Israel is going to be a really, really important hotspot for this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Now, Ukraine and Russia are also in the mix here. In terms of Russia, this Uranus-Jupiter conjunction is opposed to their Venus-Pluto conjunction in Russia. So that says that there is also big change coming here. Is there more territory gained from Ukraine? Or is there a power move made by Putin in some regard? Because for him, this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is on his Pluto and midheaven. He's got Pluto conjunct the midheaven, which is why he is the leader he is. And with Jupiter and Uranus opposing that, squaring that Pluto midheaven conjunction, we can see that there are going to be changes in his leadership style, at the very least, his plans, his project. But we could also be seeing some move here, maybe to even, have a change of guard with Putin. Now, I think it does look unlikely at this point that anything like that would possibly happen. Putin is very powerful. He's making progress in Russia. As it seems, everything is as it should be. There is no change in the status quo. But something around this period may begin the really big change in the status quo in terms of Russia and Putin. So we need to look and see what that might be. Now, Biden also has this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction opposed to his, I'm having to work from memory here, but I think it's Mercury, if I recall it correctly. So he too is right in the center of some big change he didn't expect. Something happening out of the blue, probably a global situation, but it could be a situation within America as well. Didn't expect that. There is change and forthcoming changes in terms of his leadership as well. Nobody appears to be free of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So I also want to look at Donald Trump. His midheaven 24 Taurus is a little bit wide of this conjunction at 22, but it's near there, isn't it? It's only 2 degrees. So to have this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on his midheaven is going to make for changes in terms of his role. So he's having a lot going on at this time. On April the 15th, the trial begins, the hush money trial, Stormy Daniels. Of course, that may not happen. For all we know, there have been so many extraordinary developments surrounding Trump and all the court cases. There have been delays and all sorts of movement and change and scandal. I mean, there's been a whole potpourri of extraordinary developments already. So I'm saying the trial is set for April the 15th, but who knows? Jupiter-Uranus, solar eclipses, Sun square Pluto's, anything could happen. But I certainly think Trump is at a very, very important part of this year's, certainly the developments this year. We know that he is the candidate for the presidential election. There is no one else to oppose him, but he is facing a great deal of trouble in terms of his financial empire, his financial worth, his standing. We're going to see the first president in history in court on criminal charges. That's a Jupiter-Uranus event, if ever there was one. So I think his political future is uncertain. I know it doesn't seem it if you're looking at all these great rallies that he does and the great support he has from his MAGA supporters. It doesn't look as though he's in any danger whatsoever of not making it to the election in November. But watch this space. Anything and everything can happen when you're looking at a period of time like this. Even England, the UK, Great Britain, Saturn, this Uranus Jupiter conjunction is square the UK Saturn. So we are going to see some really, really difficult, upheaval-y types of things. I mean, of course, Rishi Sunak, is there another call for a leadership contest? There could be anything. Could he resign? Maybe he will. Is there something else that's central to Great Britain's historical position? It's governments, it's leaders, it's royalty even. Is there really going to be some kind of change here that nobody is expecting? So I'm putting all these things out to you because whenever you see that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and it's going to hit your sun, your midheaven, your ascendant, something really important, my goodness, you know that there is going to be shocks, surprises. They can be brilliant surprises. They can change life foreverably in a fantastic way, but they can also bring you down and make for changes that it's going to be very difficult to clear up, because the damage that Uranus creates tends to be just rubble. You're going to have to make something out of the rubble. So I think I've sort of finished my list here, and what I want to do is now get on with it sign by sign. Just before I start looking at this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction sign by sign, I want to say again, just to remind people, that I do look at it from the perspective of the sun sign, because unless you really know, your house positions, what sign you have rising, we're going to have a look at it from a solar perspective. And also, I always climb into the skin of the sign that I'm talking about. So it is valid. We can look at where the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is in relation to your sun sign. And the sun is the center of the solar system, so I consider it very valid. But yes, if you know your rising degree, you know where, in which house the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is taking place, you can have a look at that interpretation when we get to it and get a sort of extra kind of insight on what this is all about. It's all valid, as I say. So I'm going to start with Taurus. After all, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is happening in your sign. And one of the things I want to say right from the get-go, Taurus, is that as an earth sign and a fixed sign, the idea of change and something you can't control is really anathema. You don't like that. You like to know what's going on. You like to figure things out. You like to come at things slowly, plenty of time. And certainly if you're going to change anything in your life, you're going to go somewhere, do something you've never done before, you need a pretty long time to think it out. Well, you don't have a long time with Jupiter and Uranus. Things happen very, very quickly. And we're looking at it in your sign, and technically we're looking at a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in the first house if you've got Taurus rising. We would also be looking at the idea of some change to your appearance even, or some change in your manner, some change in how you come across to other people, a change of persona, image. All those kind of things would be central to a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And it's good to think about what you can do to harness the spirit, the power, the properties of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And that does mean doing things differently, doing things that you've been thinking about for a long time and a little bit too scared maybe to implement. This is your time. Go for it. Make waves. Do things differently. There can be no growth without change. And that's the epitome of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, isn't it? Jupiter growth, Uranus change. There can be no growth without change. It's your little byword, if you like. So we can see things happening to you as well, great opportunities, good fortune, things coming into your life, which are real opportunities that are going to make for a bigger and better life. But we can also see, when we look at the negative aspect of a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, that something breaks up now, something goes, something changes. And that means that for a little while, you may be very fazed by the experience that you're facing. You may think, I don't know what to do with this. I have no idea. I'd like to rewind the tape, but I can't. Things have changed in a way that I can't rewind the tape. Yes, the only way forward is in a new direction. And of course, if you've got anything at 21 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, then that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is going to be your shock of the new, the liberation that you need, the change that is essential to your growth. But we're also looking at this time at the Sun angling Pluto. Pluto up there in Aquarius, your 10th house, top of the chart, Sun at the very early degrees of Taurus. So really affecting those of you with birthdays 20th, 21st, 22nd of April. That's a big movement here. Again, I mentioned at the beginning, as the overview as I was beginning, that you might want to go back to that January 20th period around that time, because there is a resonance there. So events are either linked, or you feel things are the same, something's come back to be dealt with again. And with Mercury retrograde at the moment, we do have that theme quite, playing long and loud, the idea of there's some return of something that's come back and it now needs to be re-examined. So again, if you have a birthday around this time, even if the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction isn't on anything in your natal chart, the fact that the Sun is squaring Pluto is all about transformation, is something changing from what it was into something new. It's about reinvention. It's all about what can the past do to help you make changes in the present. That's a very positive way to look at it. But it is quite a difficult aspect, a Sun-Pluto square and a Jupiter-Uranus one. Whatever happens is life-changing if you're, picking up these degrees, and that can be in a most wonderful way, and it can also be in a very deeply unsettling way. I popped the Moon and Neptune in there as well. If you remember, when I looked at the overview, I talked about Mars coming up to Neptune, and in fact the Moon is opposing Neptune at the moment of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. there is some sense of confusion around, something mysterious, and it can phase you a little. Even if the events are good, it can confuse you a bit, unbalance you. And that's something to bear in mind at this particular time. Okay, Taurus. So let's move on to Gemini. Now, for Gemini, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is taking place in the 12th house of your solar chart, this area of secrets and shadows, as I often say. Jupiter, of course, will come into your sign at the end of May, and Uranus will come into your sign in a year or so. So this is still in preparation. This is a process of becoming. So perhaps a lot of things that are in preparation right now are subject to sudden changes or flashes of, insight, or sudden thunderstorms of change. Whatever it is, it's going to change the eventual outcome for you. So as a sign, Gemini, you are really very adaptable, and you love concepts, and you can take different positions, and you can channel your energies in different directions. So this is a good conjunction for you, because the opportunities that are being presented to you at this moment, you're not going to be stifled by the idea, oh, I wanted it to be this way, and so now, I can't, it can't be what I want it to be. But yes, it can still be what you want it to be, but by a different route and in a slightly different shape. But you're adaptable. You can deal with this. So Jupiter and Uranus in the 12th house is really knocking at the door of your unconscious mind. So don't be surprised if you're having some very, very powerful dreams or powerful synchronicities. Something happens, and that's exactly what you were thinking about. Something going on in your life, some random development, you're reading about it in a novel that you've got. All those are kind of synchronicities. They'll be looming large in your life, and they're messages. I think synchronicities are like messages, in the sense of telling you you're on the right path or you're on the wrong path. Whatever way it is, it's a very powerful medium for, helping you make good decisions, or helping you to adapt and change. So there's also the sense of something coming out of the shadows here. Now, that's something we say about a solar eclipse as well, isn't it? We think about what's been hiding, because the moon is coming across the face of the sun and obliterating it, and then it moves past. So something that's been concealed is being revealed. A secret, a situation going on that you didn't know about. And the thing to do, Gemini, here is whether there are awakenings for you, or powerful dreams, or subtleties and nuances that seem to you to be sending up red flags or green flags. Obey those signals. You don't have to necessarily act immediately on them, but you need to look into them and take them seriously, like a synchronicity is serious. So take it seriously. The Sun and Pluto, well, the Sun dipping into the 12th house, squaring Pluto, can do all sorts of things, taking you back to January. Did you travel in January? Did you do something in January that started a new course of some kind of description? Because there's a reference to that right now. And also with Pluto, you're uncovering something that's been hidden, or at the back of your mind, or something you've been meaning to do and you haven't got round to doing. Then that Sun-Pluto square is going to reveal it. And so it is a powerful transformational tool to get you to change certain aspects of your existence, and to get on with certain things that maybe you sidelined or shelved. We can also see in this the moon opposing Neptune. And as I said, when we were looking at the overview, Mars is getting closer and closer to Neptune. It'll be there on the, I think, the 29th of April. So we've got this idea that there is a lot of confusion, and it's a bit like, if we think about, if a splash of water happens, it obliterates your view at the time because all the spray is blocking your view. Same with dust, something kicking up a lot of dust. You have to wait for the dust to settle in order to see the view. And this would be my advice, in that it's almost like that Moon-Neptune opposition is telling you, Gemini, let the dust settle a bit before you take action. So now let's come to Cancer. And for you, this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is taking place in the 11th house. Now, in my year aheads, which I do at the beginning of the year, and you can get them online, astrolutely.com, I've talked a lot about Jupiter in the 11th house, and how Jupiter expands whatever sign it's in, whatever principle it is, whatever house it is, whatever situation it is. So we've got this idea of the group, of collaborations, of things, to be done with kindred spirits, to think of the bigger collective picture as opposed to the personal. So we put Jupiter and Uranus together, and your humanitarian spirit is likely to be stirred. If you haven't done anything yet, which you think of as helping humanitarian causes or doing something to help your fellow man, I think this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction will do it. It's like, I've been meaning to do this, I'm going to do it. But we can also think about new collaborations beginning, so new business enterprises, new startups. And I think things done on this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in the way of starting enterprises and things that you do with groups of other people is really, really good. It can take you places. It can open up your world. So if you've been thinking about developing your own business, you've been thinking about, you had an offer to join a startup, you even get this idea that you want to do something with friends, you want to set something in motion with friends, obey that instinct, because the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is saying, do that, because it's growth, it's for your growth, it will grow. It's going to take you in directions you never expected. And I think here, the call of the collective is strong. I mean, of course, we all care about ourselves, how we feel, what's going on in our world, very subjective. But with the 11th house, where this conjunction is and where the sun is just entering, is all about, there's a bigger picture here. There are other people. There are other things that my actions and their actions contribute to. So there is a much wider sense of how you fit into a collective scheme of things, and it's good. The Sun-Pluto square, very, very interesting, because on January the 20th, 21st, we have Pluto moving back into Aquarius, and we had the Sun-Pluto conjunction. So around that period of January, all sorts of things may have happened to you. You may have thought about doing certain things happened, and they made for you thinking about, oh, maybe I should do this, maybe I have to do this now, maybe it's a fait accompli, maybe something's happened now, and it can't be the same, I have to do something different. So the Sun-Pluto square is a reference to the January period, but it's also a call to transformation. So it is about, developing something that is changing your core values, your core. So it is this process of transformation personally, but also in terms of what you're doing in life and your interaction with other people. That this is a really important kind of flash of awareness and wisdom, and it will change your life for you. Last, along, looking at this diagram here, the circle of the horoscope, Moon opposition Neptune. Yes, it's confusing, especially around the 20th, 21st of April. Don't be surprised if things are very, very confusing to you. You're not sure what way they're going to, happen and what you should do. and really even what you should make of it. Let the dust settle. Let the water settle, whatever it is that's appropriate at this point in time, until you can see clearly this is no time for action. And so to Leo, well, when we look at you, Leo, we find the sun at the top of your chart, and we've got Jupiter and Uranus in that 10th house. And when we look at 10th house matters, we're looking at career, your role in life. And of course, your role in life can be as a parent. You know, we have lots of different roles, don't we? Healer, helper, mother, father, whatever it is. We don't have to have a career to have a 10th house and things happening in the 10th house to be important to it. But certainly, I think you are in a period, and have been for about a year, of potentially very good things happening career-wise. You've seen an expansion of your talents, and you've had opportunities to play on a bigger stage. You've been able to develop, evolve, and achieve a certain amount of success. That's just the Jupiter transit of this 10th house. But of course, Uranus is there as well. So we've also got change, unexpected change. So maybe jobs have gone almost overnight, or maybe your brief in terms of what you do for a job has changed. Maybe there's been a lot of things going on in terms of media attention, or social media, or electronic mediums and digital worlds. Maybe this has all played into your career and how your world is evolving. It's been quite a time of growth technology-wise for you, getting used to working with new systems perhaps, but also new jobs available to you, perhaps with a technological or digital application to them. But we come again to your essential nature, Leo, or if you've got Leo rising, it's, you know, these are two kind of, they're not the same, but they're showing an element in both situations. Control. Leos like to be in control. You cannot bear it when other people are in charge. You can't bear it when you can't steer things the way you want them. It gives you a feel of being out of control, and that is terrible. And it's good to take responsibility. It's good to be someone who takes charge, someone who can lead the rest, who can take a prominent position. And Leo, that's in your nature. But what perhaps you're having to learn, especially with this Jupiter conjunct Uranus, is that you can't control everything. Sometimes you have to step back and let things just be, or let them fully unravel or unfold, whichever seems to be more pertinent to you, before you can start to get a grip on them. So don't be surprised, Leo, if you feel a little bit out of control in this late April period, that things are happening so fast, or they're happening and you haven't had time really to see how you wanted to put your input in there. But relax, let things be. You can't have input until you know what the correct input is. So big changes for you. We think about the Sun-Pluto square on that day. Relationships play into this. Is it other people who are in control of things and you're having to adapt to their needs, their decisions, their acts? Is it that a relationship itself is either coming into being and the cause of all this change? Or is it that a relationship is at its end and there is a breakup? Remember that all those B words, breakup is also part of that picture. But of course, Jupiter and Uranus are saying, you know, there's a new path forward. That's why this has to end, because a new path has to emerge. And yes, let's look at that Moon-Neptune opposition. It's confusing. You may be deep in doubt about what you should do, or really what precisely is going on. And wait, you know, you will get the reins of control back in your hands. Maybe not immediately, but you will get them back. And maybe it's a lesson here in learning to allow things to unfold, to allow other people to be, to allow situations to be. before you start to get a grip on them. So on to Virgo. So Virgo, for you, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is happening in the 9th house. Couldn't be a nicer area. I love the 9th house. I'm a 9th house girl, or a 9th house old woman, whichever you prefer. But the 9th house really takes you into new country. And that can be literal, travel, being exposed to new cultures, new religions, new thinking. It's wisdom, it's opening up to ancient wisdom, new scientific thought. Good heavens, it's all in there. Astrology, my goodness. Jupiter-Uranus is about astrology. So Virgo, if you're watching me at this point and you're thinking, I've just begun an astrology course, or you know what, I think I'm going to take up astrology. This is your call to arms. Absolutely, the study of astrology. Jupiter-Uranus in the 9th house. It's perfect. But it's also about journeys in experience, journeys in knowledge. And with Jupiter and Uranus, there's always a surprise factor. There's always an element that you didn't expect. So journeys come about suddenly and unexpectedly. You didn't think you were going to make this journey, but yes, guess what, you are. And that can mean, you know, a trip in an aeroplane or a boat or a train or whatever it is. That's what the Jupiter-Uranus journey is all about. But it can also be about an experience that now descends on your front door, so to speak, and getting through it is your journey in experience, but it's going to be great and good. And I think about acquiring new skill set here. Is this also a call to arms in terms of you need to get more digitally aware? You know, so many jobs these days require that you can handle computers and all of that. So is this a time when you're going to be starting a course that's going to teach you how to become computer savvy, digitally aware? But also here, I think about, I mentioned the word religion, but let's think in terms of belief systems, so we don't get too bogged down in religion. But this could be a very powerful time for you in terms of spiritual awakening and getting more of an idea about your own spiritual framework. And of course, when we have a spiritual framework with which to set all our experiences, it is a strengthening factor, and it's certainly an illuminating factor. Things may happen in other countries that change your life too. And there is definitely a link between people you know and people who are far away from where you are currently. So that is bound up in the change, whatever that change is, whether it's a change of job, whether it's a change of place, a change of home, whatever it is, we've got a foreign, international, distant element coming into play. The Pluto-Sun connection, Pluto in the 6th house of work and well-being, is part of this change that's forthcoming going to be because of a health situation, or is it because of a work situation? There are changes, developments, opportunities, difficulties, whatever they may be. This is all going to be part of that journey that I've been talking about. Let's look at the moon, which is in Virgo, opposing Neptune at the time of that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. It's all going to be very strange. The things that are happening are going to be very unfamiliar, or you're going to feel generally confused about them, in two minds at least, if not more. But settle down. The moon will move into Libra. Then, of course, it will trine Pluto. It'll do other things, so it'll pass through there. And eventually, over the days that follow all of this major kind of planetary activity, there will be understanding. And of course, ultimately, because Jupiter is growth, Uranus is change, so growth comes because of change. So Libra, where are you and what is happening in your solar chart? Well, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is in the 8th house. And of course, the sun will just have gone in there a couple of days before, and it's going to square Pluto on the same day. So this is really 8th house territory. And what do we know about the 8th house? Well, it has a lot to do with money and sort of not exactly your own money. It's not about what you earn. It's not about what you bring to the table. It's about what other people bring to you. It's about shared financial resources. It's about the relationships you have with banks and lending institutions and all sorts of things like that. So you could look at Jupiter and Uranus and see change here in your financial relationships. Change, is it good change or is it the opposite? Well, it's going to be different from Libra to Libra. You have to wait and find out. But there could be a sudden influx of money. Is this a settlement? Is this an inheritance? Or is this some kind of support for you coming? So some grand gesture. Have you won the lottery? Has something happened that really changes the financial status quo? Or is it something that happens to your partner, your life partner, your business partner, people who you have affiliations with? Is it what's happening there that is going to make a difference to your income as well? Yes, it could. What I would also say, Libra, is that if you've got a really difficult financial situation on your hands, and it's just growing and growing and growing, as you know, the cost of living crisis, a lot of people have, got more debt than they really need. So it's a collective problem almost. So is it that at this point you have to look at cutting your losses? You can't go on paying more and more in terms of interest or whatever it is. It could be. It's a tipping point. It's saying, enough is enough. We've gone as far as we can with this financial situation, and it's enough. But also this area of the chart, I talk about, I'll use that word receivership, because it's what we receive. Oh, and yes, of course, having talked about debt rising, maybe this is the time to go into receivership because things are just too big, you can't handle them anymore. But we're also looking, I think, at the idea of partnership and how important it is that we feel that we can receive things from the people we partner with. We're not always steering the ship and being the giver. We can accept what they offer. So there can be some extraordinary things happening in regard to your relationship with other people, especially a significant other. We have to think about sex here, the gateway to intimacy. Is this gateway thrust open in a way that makes for overall changes in the way you feel about yourself, the way you relate to other people, your sex life, whatever it may be? Yes, it could. That's all in the palm, so to speak, of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. We also have the sun entering that house. So, for the next 4 weeks, there's going to be a lot going on in terms of everything that I've been talking about. But the Sun-Pluto square takes you back to that January period. Was that a period that something happened financially and you can relate it back to that time? You could play into it. Or is it that, at this particular time, something that you invested in and it doesn't have to be financial investment, it can be other kinds of investment. Is it that it's reached a point where you can either see it's paid off, that investment, or that it hasn't, and there have to be changes? Also at this time, you can see the moon there, just about to enter Libra, but it is in Virgo, opposing Neptune. Then we've got confusion, and there is definitely a confusing aspect to this. And if you think about it, 20th, 21st, the weekend, I think you probably want to not do anything when you're not sure about it. In other words, if the weather's bad, if you're sort of not feeling too good, or there's something that's bothering you, obey those intuitions, Libra, because it could prevent you from taking a step that's unwise. But again, there's just general confusion around this time. So many things happening and nobody really knows what to make of it. So we're seeing that in that Moon-Neptune opposition. And of course, ultimately, it will be resolved. We will be able to see it clearly. Scorpio. So for you, Jupiter and Uranus are in your 7th house. And this has been a long story, hasn't it? I mean, Uranus has been in your 7th house since 2018, I think. Could be 2017, but certainly 2018. So it depends. Whenever it's come along and opposed your Sun in Scorpio, there have been unexpected developments linked to relationships. Maybe you've met someone being swept off your feet, you've changed partnerships, you've left someone, gone with someone else, or something's happened in your relationship to break it up. And we can stretch that out and look at it in terms of business and business partnerships, your relationship with a company, your relationship with company workers. So all this has been subject to Uranus change. And maybe things have been unpleasant, or maybe they've just been exciting. They can be either with Uranus, the great change bringer of astrology. In the last year, Jupiter has been moving through the 7th house, and it has opened up a lot of potential for happiness in relationships. So you may have started a relationship, seen it grow already, and are ready to make it permanent, a long-term relationship. Maybe you've had a lot of interest from other people. People have backed you. People have helped you in your career, helped you grow, whichever way you want to think about that. Put Jupiter and Uranus together, and you've got some really potentially very exciting developments in your love life, in your relationship life, in anything where you consider this is all about partnerships, and this is me with other people and my relationship with other people. So there is both growth, but also upset. We have to work with the two things. For some Scorpios, here it comes, a great offer, the beginning of a new era, almost linked to partnerships, relationships, your love life, all of that. And you can see it, touch it, feel it, and know it's fantastic. But for other Scorpios, it's the opposite. Suddenly things have gone out of your control. You've got a partner who's making decisions and actions that you don't like, that you feel aren't okay. And before you know where you are, you've bust up. That's it. It's the end of the party. Of course, it's meant to be. Anything happening in this climate, Sun-Pluto square, all the other things I pointed out at the beginning of this video, this is a time of destiny. So everything, in a way, is part of your destiny. How you deal with it, entirely up to your decision-making. Remember, what happens, happens. What you do about it is in your hands. The Sun-Pluto square takes us back to January, and that might even help in your thinking. What happened in that mid to late January period that was significant in relation to what's going on now? Look for it. Connect the dots. See how that might help and enlighten. It probably will. There is a relationship between these two. But Pluto is about transformation. And if you're an early Scorpio, we're talking about 22nd, 23rd, 24th, even the 25th of October, then Pluto is on your case, and it's making for big changes in your life, things that you don't necessarily have a lot of control over. But as you go forward, you'll see what has been eliminated, what space has been cleared is going to be fertile. That's where new paths and new opportunities, new relationships, new whatever it is, are going to take root. So it's a good thing, even if at the time it's painful, and even if, as you're listening to me and you're going through this powerful period where you feel you have no control over everything, it will pass, and it will eventually turn out to have been a very good thing. We look also at a Moon-Neptune opposition, and we just know how confusing this period is. Confusing for humanity, confusing for your fellow nation, other people within your nation, family and friends, and also for you. But it will pass. once the dust settles, you'll be able to see a little bit more clearly. Sagittarius, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction for you is taking place in the 6th house, and the sun has just entered the 6th house as well. This such a misunderstood part of the horoscope. And I used to worry about this when I was learning astrology, and actually for quite a while I was an astrologer. I think, how can we put together these two areas that seem to be so different? We're looking at work and we're looking at health. What possible relationship can they have with each other? But they do, because both are systems. When we work, that's part of the daily system that we have systems at work, we have a health system. So things must function well in order for us to be successful, in order for us to have work health, in order for us to have physical health. We need to have a system that's running well. What do Jupiter and Uranus do? They change it. They change a system. So it can be a bit of an upset. Maybe, you didn't expect things to happen the way they happen, but guess what? It's good for the system because it's going to bring about changes that you need to make. For some Sagittarians, this is all about a job change or changes within your workplace. What about a whole new system, technology, digitally? My goodness, if you're not used to working with a new system, it can be really, really complicated and difficult. And what you want to do is go back to the old way. No, I don't want to learn how to use a computer. No, I don't want to learn this app. I don't want to have to do any of this. But that's what Jupiter and Uranus are saying. You have to get with the new. You have to embrace new technology, because new technology is good for you in terms of your overall health, and it's good for you in terms of your work and for the systems by which your life runs. And any changes that happen right now, any accidents, are divine accidents, because they're meant to stop you in your tracks, awaken you to a real state of affairs, so you can say, wow, I've seen the light. I have to change. This has to change. This cannot be the same as it has always been. So yes, for some Sagittarians, this is promotion. This is a new job, something that's going to change your lifestyle, change your life, but it's going to take some getting used to, because you're going to be doing new things and obviously new technology coming in there. For others, it's a sudden end of a job. What are you going to do now? The rug's being pulled out from underneath you. You no longer have that job. Well, I promise you, Jupiter conjoined to Uranus is saying, it was time. That job needed to come to an end, because guess what? You need to channel your talents, your interests, your desires, your ambitions into a new area. It may take a little while to think about and figure out what is your best way forward, but this is the reason it's happened. And then we look at that Sun-Pluto square. We know that on Sun-Pluto aspects, things, are in turmoil very often. So it may feel as though a lot of things you'd banked on, or a lot of things that you thought were in place and they'd be in place for a long time, just aren't there now. They've gone. Your options have gone. But they've gone because you can't think of another way to do it, or, other systems, but you will. And I think, too, the idea that Moon-Neptune conjunction is there at the time of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and playing into the meaning of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, is that out of the confusion and disarray, discombobulation, will come wisdom and will come ways forward. And we have to trust that particular process. Sagittarius, you are a mutable sign. You are adaptable. You can think on your feet. You are a natural explorer. But I think sometimes you do crave some kind of stability and uniformity. So if you feel right now that that's all been upset and it's not happening and you're not very happy about it, it's adjustment. You will adjust. And things are meant to be the way they're meant to be right now. And I know you're philosophical enough to get that. So roll with the punches, but also accept your great and good offerings, accept them with great joy too. Jupiter-Uranus, your ruling planet with Uranus, change brings growth. Capricorn, Jupiter and Uranus for you are in the 5th house. And Uranus, of course, has been moving through the 5th house for the past 6 years or so. It won't really make a big impact unless and until it's caught or connected to something in your natal chart. Then you'll know about Uranus, because suddenly something happens and it's like changed your world. Oh, goodness, things are different. That's Uranus. So put Jupiter in there as well, and you've got, not only are things different, but they are big time different. Wow, capital W-O-W. Is this ever an awakening? Have my feelings been awakened? Have my ideas been shaken up? Am I looking out and seeing a whole new horizon in front of me, very possibly with that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction? And what we would like that to be is some kind of wonderful awakening, so that something happens and we're full of joy about the news. Someone comes to you and tells you, this is happening, isn't that amazing? And it like opens up new possibilities for you. And you say, oh my goodness, yes. But on the other hand, perhaps it's the reverse. And what's happened is something you thought was going ahead, something you thought would be there forever, unchangeable, unchanging, has done just that. It's changed overnight. It's different. And now what do? Capricorn, you're an earth sign. And earth doesn't like to be moved. Earth likes everything to be consistent, and it likes everything to be in place. So you get a disruption like this, and it's all very not what you want. But it is good for you to change. And the other aspect to your sign is that Capricorn is a cardinal sign. So it's a mover and shaker. So once you get behind a change, you really steamroller it along. It goes. So as soon as you can get a handle on the things that are happening in relation to this Jupiter-Uranus, Sun, Pluto, Mars, Neptune, all of it, because it's big, you can go forward successfully with it. And as I've said to almost every sign of the zodiac, as I've gone through this particular patterning, that Uranus brings change, Jupiter is growth. So we get growth through change. And you can harness that by thinking, what do I need to change? What needs to change? If I can do that, I'm going to grow. I'm going to grow financially. I'm going to grow professionally. I'm going to grow as a human being. My consciousness is going to grow. All sorts of things are potentially able to grow once you've changed them. And I think the Sun Pluto plays into that as well, because that's fairly earth moving. I mean, it's the volcano image with Sun Pluto, symbolism. You see the idea of the volcano exploding. But of course, once it has all that energy and heat, and as it rolls down, the lava rolls down the mountainside, it's leaving deposits, these mineral deposits out of which, things will grow. And you need to keep these images to hand, because that's your future in the place of great disturbance, in the changes that you're witnessing or going through. There is growth to come because of all of them. Now we look here at children as well, our offerings in the 5th house, our creative offerings, the enterprises, the creative endeavors we get involved with, which can include babies and children and, so on, grandchildren and so on. Is this an unplanned pregnancy, or is this an unexpected news about a new arrival? Yes, it could be. It depends on other factors in your life and in your chart, but it could be. Or is it something that means there's some kind of separation from a child? Is it because the news that it is that you've got a child who's moving away from nearby moving to a different place, or that there have been some other exceptional circumstances linked to one of your offspring that are part of this Jupiter-Uranus experience. You didn't expect it. You're going to adapt to a new set of circumstances, but that doesn't mean it can't be a great and good set of circumstances every bit as much as you might be feeling the disruption of it all. Back in January, the middle of January through to about the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, the sun moved from Capricorn into Aquarius, but as it did, and Pluto moved from Capricorn into Aquarius. So there was still a lot to be gained from Pluto and the sun as it went past that point in January, around January the 20th. So events now could hark back to that point. Something happened then, it's now in play again, or there's a reference to it, a resonance to it. And that can be, you know, again, something that's grist to your mill. You can make something out of it, or it may set you back a pace. But eventually there will be growth through that, as we can see by the setup. The moon opposition Neptune in general is creating a lot of disturbance, and we can't see. It's very confusing. So events at this time are going to be incredibly confusing, but once they settle down, we'll see new paths emerging. Remember, that moon is trining Pluto. And so to Aquarius. Now, for you, Aquarius, of course, I immediately look at Pluto in your sign, but I'm focusing on the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction here. And of course, Uranus is your modern ruler. So you resonate with Uranus. It's part of the reason sometimes you feel like a square peg in a round hole, or you have all these great ideas and no one else can understand them. That's the Uranus factor in your nature. It's also the sense that you like to be independent. And you don't like to be sort of over emotional about things, because if you get bogged down in emotion, you can't think straight. So Uranus is a great bringer of knowledge. It's a great mover of situations. And it's also the thing that keeps you light years ahead of other people. So the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is a great opportunity for your freedom. I think it's Cry Freedom. Remember, I think there was a film called Cry Freedom. And I look at this in the context of Aquarius, and I think it is Cry Freedom. This is liberation. So whether events liberate you at the time and you feel, oh, it's all gone, I'm free, or whether the things that happen are the means to which you will have your liberty in the future, that's in here. Now we look at this conjunction taking place in the fourth house. That's the roots of life. It is your family, your ancestors. It's your base. It's where you live. It's your family if you have, you know, kids and everything. The family you've created as well as the family you've come from. So there is some development linked to all of this that sets a new chapter in order. Things are different. Things are unusual. Is it that there's suddenly you're going to have to move home? Is it that a member of the family is going to move to a different place? Is it that there is some change in the family structure? Is perhaps one of your families splitting up so that the family won't be as whole as it was? Is it that there's a new member coming into the family by birth or by marriage? It's certainly changing the nature of the family structure. Is it that something coming from the past, like a revelation about your history, is that what's coming in at this point? Are you the focus for a revelation of some description? And that's going to change how you see your part in the family story or your family as a whole. Something happening to one of your parents. Is it mother? Is it father? Is it an elder figure, or is it a younger figure? All these things are the source of Jupiter-Uranus change, awakening, and also disruption. Remember, we can't have all the good things and none of the bad. In some ways, it would be a great time to move, because you would be starting a new chapter in a new place, and there'd be new experiences and new possibilities. So all sorts of things are going to add to your growth, because we put these two words together with Jupiter and Uranus. We put Jupiter growth and we put Uranus change, and we get change being the source of growth. And that's firmly imprinted on this. This also can have to do with your career, because our platform in life and what we make of our life in the world comes from our upbringing and, you know, the things that were implanted in us by our family and our childhood experience. So there could be job changes here, whether there is sudden, amazing good fortune career-wise, or whether there is the reverse and you've not got what you thought you were going to have, or you know, what was in place is now no longer in place. But remember, this combined with a Sun-Pluto square is saying to you, you know, there is something has to be eliminated, good old Pluto word, elimination, especially something toxic, in order for growth to follow. And I have used this imagery before of a volcano, and as it erupts in that great blaze of fire and the lava rolls down the mountainside, it's leaving in its wake mineral deposits that will fuel growth in the future. And it's creating new land as it goes as well. So this imagery is central to what's going on in your life right now. And that might be of enormous help to you. I think if we look at the good side of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, it really is about what's happening at the moment is going to change your life in ways you couldn't imagine. And whether that's a difficult experience right now or whether it's a joyous experience right now, the important thing is life will be different in the wake of it. And we also know from looking at that Moon-Neptune opposition that things aren't clear right now. At the time of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, on the Saturday, Sunday, that weekend, it's all happening. Events around that time are going to confuse us, whether they're in our personal life, friends and family, or whether they're out there, global situations, which are like, what is going on? I can't see the purpose of it. I don't know where we go from here, that kind of thing. But of course, the moon will move into Libra fairly smartishly, and it will trine Pluto rising in your sign. And I think certainly if you've got a birthday around the 21st, 20th, 21st, 22nd of January, Pluto is on your case. So you're in a slow 3 to 4 year period where a lot of change is going on. You are changing as a person. You are essentially the phoenix going to arise from the ashes of situations that have, you know, been burnt to ashes. So it's a gradual process, but at this point, we could say it was accelerated progress. This is happening very quickly. It's a point in the year at which a lot happens, and you can start to understand this great process of transformation. So onward into Pisces. So Pisces, for you, this sun, the sun is moving into the third house. Jupiter and Uranus are in the third house. This is an area that has everything to do with your outlook. And that's such a good word. I love the way words have layers of meaning, because we can look out of a window. That is our outlook. But of course, our outlook on life is our mental outlook, you know. So to have this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in the area of your outlook is saying, wow, are things changing? Now, of course, when we think about a hurricane or some act of nature, taking away trees or, you know, blowing things around, we can look out of our window and think, oh, has my outlook ever changed? There used to be a tree standing there. But of course, it's a metaphor in the main. And so things that are happening right now are changing your views. You're thinking, oh, I never knew that. I never thought it possible. So now I'm going to have to change my mindset about this. And it's a good thing. But it could also be, I think, and especially as Uranus has been moving through the third house here for the past 6 years or so. So you may already have decided to do something different with your life. You may have decided to take a course that would add skills, a new skill set, or knowledge that you feel is enriching your life, going to change your thinking. That may already have happened. We've had Jupiter going through this area for the past year almost. So is this also a time where you have started a new course? You've got more skills, you've thought about getting qualifications or whatever it is, studying, academia, it could be all sorts of things. Or have you been on a journey of exploration, some kind of quest? Because all that is potentially where Jupiter has been taking you. So now we put these two things together, Jupiter and Uranus, and we've got the idea that this journey is now delivering its results. And maybe they're unexpected. You hadn't thought this journey would take you where it has done, would lead to the outcomes that it has. And there's also just something here. I mean, all of us use or have something to do with social media, don't we? I mean, if you're someone like me, yes, you need social media because that's how you communicate with your world. But our small world of friends and family, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it may be. And I think this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction has something to do with that. So there is perhaps a lot more uses social media will have for you. Or is it you're starting your own YouTube channel, or you're doing something that's new and innovative? Remember, we're in the digital world, the world of technology with Uranus, and we've got Jupiter in there as well. So if you haven't yet got some new technology in the palm of your hand or wherever else it may be, this is a call to arms. It's time to get technological. It's time to get digital. It's time to advance your knowledge of computers and the digital technology that's available, because that's going to help you. We're putting these two words together: Uranus, change; Jupiter, growth. So through change comes growth. So changing the way you work, the way you live, the means to which you get around and think about things and read and exchange ideas and promote your thoughts and use your voice. This is now becoming much bigger, louder, stronger. And is it through the advent of more media? It may be. We're also looking at the sun moving into this area. So for the next 4 weeks or so, there's going to be a much more concerted kind of effort it gained in getting your voice out, or being understood, or learning something, or getting something done. Or maybe it's travel in there as well. Maybe it's getting more connected with people in your environment that is going to be a source of kind of knowledge, growth, advance. It may be. All these things are third house things. We look too at the idea that on the day, we've got Moon opposing Neptune. And of course, Neptune is in your sign. So I think over the course of these sort of the days around the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, so we're thinking of the 19th, 20th, 21st, even, well, maybe not the 22nd, but the 21st, we're sort of thinking about, is this period for you one of high expectations? There's something that has touched in you visions of, what you want life to be. Have your senses been really inspired? Have you been transported in some way? That could be it. But there's also potential for things to be very confusing for you at this time, maybe because of what someone said or done, or the general, lay of what's happened to you in your life. But once the confusion has gone, you're going to see much more of the picture, and you're just going to be able to see what you need to do, and also what's been helped to happen in the process of any disturbance, disruption, change that's gone on. And that is directly related to the Sun-Pluto square at the same time as the Jupiter-Uranus one. We've looked at Earth shattering, we've looked at Earth moving, we're looking at elimination, but out of elimination, transformation and growth. So, Aries, my final sign. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, but on this occasion, you've ended up being the last sign of the zodiac. So for you, this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is in the second house of self-worth. So Uranus has been moving through this area for the past 6 years, since about 2018, 2017, 2018. So maybe for you, this has been a time when you've seen your income fluctuate. You had times when you've been in the money and times when you haven't. And maybe you've had to be really versatile with earning money, how you spend your money, how you use the money that you have, because Uranus really can rip the carpet up so that you lose income overnight. But so too can it bring surprise sources of income. And that can be a great and good thing. You can enjoy the suddenness of a sudden influx of money, whether that comes from your own efforts, and probably it does come from your own efforts rather than gifts from other people, or a result of perhaps, companies or people you work for being particularly generous. I think this is generating your own income. And with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, it's a very, very entrepreneurial, conjunction. If you haven't yet considered ways in which to generate your own income, start your own company, your own business, add something to the way money comes in, but you do it off your own bat, this is a call to arms for you to do that. There is a growth in entrepreneurialism. Oh, that was a difficult one to say. Entrepreneurism with this particular conjunction. And Aries, who are you if you're not a pioneer? So whatever the circumstances that you're dealing with right now that might be quite unsettling, destabilizing, shocking even, it's about getting creative, getting inventive, being entrepreneurial. Now, the other thing about this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is about your reputation. And again, we could have maybe seen some changes to how other people view you. Maybe some people have said or thought things about you, and there've been upsets, and there've been breakups and estrangements and losses of position due to this Uranus effect. Or maybe there've been sudden rises to prominence, and so that you've seen your worth grow in terms of your value to other people, what you do, your job, your person. It can be any of those things. So we put Jupiter and Uranus together. We get the principle of change, Uranus, and we get the principle of Jupiter, growth. So we get change equals growth. And maybe you need to think of that. Maybe if you lose a job and lose a source of income right now, what that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is saying, hey, this is a means to future growth, and get innovative, get thinking about what you can do, get into change. Does it mean getting more technology as well? Does it mean using artificial intelligence? Does it mean using more digital stuff in order to enhance your worth? And when we think about, all the apps we use these days for one thing or another, if you haven't yet got a banking app, can I recommend doing it on a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction? Or indeed doing anything that combines those words, digital money, technology, money. Put those two things together and you've got growth, innovation, movement. Now, of course, it may also be to do with property. So maybe you're in the process of selling a property or selling some of your property. And the chances are on this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, it's going to go suddenly, unexpectedly. And hopefully that means an influx of cash as opposed to one where you're losing money. But I would say if you've been dealing with an escalating financial problem, that debts have been growing and growing, this is the time to cut your losses because you've reached a tipping point. And the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is saying it needs to stop and is out of control. And by doing that, of course, new avenues open up. So that may also be part of your picture. The Pluto-Sun square, that's going to make this period of time not just volatile, but earth-moving. And when we think about that slow process of change that Pluto evokes, so that you become a different person over a period of years, so that things that are already innate to you but hasn't been expressed start to emerge, so that you're becoming the person you were always meant to be. Your values are shifting and changing. What you thought was important, what you thought was essential, no longer so. And if we go back to the Sun-Pluto conjunction in January, maybe there's a reference there to that period in which something happened financially, professionally, familiarly, it could be anything, but it's playing into this situation now and really changing your perspective, your values, the things that you think are central to your stability and security. On the day, 20th, 21st, as you can see at the time of that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, the moon is opposing Neptune. So it's at this time things can happen in a very, very weird way. You probably don't want to take a great risk over this weekend, whether that's a professional risk or it's some other kind of risk. Probably don't want to do it. Let things happen. But whether it's global events or it's events in your life and the life of friends and family, they can be very confusing at this point. But they won't always be confusing. And Aries suffers from impatience. You want things to happen quickly. You want to solve a problem quickly. But on this occasion, with all this going on, you want to take your time. Well, obviously, do something expedient if you have to, but in terms of really making conscious actions, you need to think about it, to see clearly before you take an action. Okay, Aries, so there we are. We have done every single sign, and we're back to me again and my conclusion. One of the things that I didn't mention in my sort of overview about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction was a very important aspect of it. And this aspect sometimes a little bit misunderstood, I have to say, but it's an important aspect. And this is this idea that Jupiter-Uranus conjunctions expand consciousness. Now, I want to think of that carefully for a minute, because when you think about scientific breakthroughs, when you think about events in the world, records being broken, things happening that change our view of things, our awareness, our consciousness, our development changes because of those breakthroughs, those events. So we can definitely then say the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction has to do with an expansion, Jupiter, of awareness, consciousness, Uranus, if you like. We can see that. But it would be wrong to assume that somehow humanity itself suddenly grows a new kind of consciousness, so we become, you know, more psychic, more aware, more sensitive, more intuitive, more all of that. That's the mistake that we need to correct, because Jupiter and Uranus conjoin, you know, every 14 years. So humanity doesn't undergo a massive change in consciousness every 14 years, or even when Jupiter squares the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and so on and so on and so on. You know, those aren't all the periods where we're suddenly getting more and more conscious, more and more aware, more and more sensitive, more and more. No, it really doesn't happen like that. It takes millions of years for consciousness to evolve to a point where we have got all these other things available to us, concepts, thought, knowledge, experience, or, you know, the technology that we have now. These are all gradual leaps in consciousness, if you like. But it's in there somehow. And I think if we stick to the straight and narrow, as it were, and see that the things that are coming into our lives, the things that we're being made aware of right now, are really the seeds of growth in our awareness, so that we take a leap in our understanding about how things work. We take a leap in understanding about how the world works. We take a leap in understanding about how we work. I think those are the things that Jupiter can bring. And of course, Jupiter-Uranus can bring. And of course, we can't go back after that. Once technology or once something is created or is there in front of us, it's going to lead forward, and it's going to make some elements of the past redundant. Just like, you know, a new iPhone makes the old phone redundant. We can see that very literally, but there are all sorts of other things that will happen in our life that mean we can't go back to the past and how it was, and, you know, what we thought was valuable or however we thought it. We've got to go forward. And I think I made a point on many of the individual interpretations I've just done through the signs that we can break this down very easily with keywords. If we think about Jupiter being growth and we think about Uranus being change, what we get is change meaning growth. Change contributes to our growth. And we need to think about that in these terms. I think the idea of suddenly thinking that different vibrations are streaming in, that portals are opening up, that somehow the thin line between the different realities is, we're able to perceive that better. That may be so, but I personally wouldn't focus so much on that, because that's enough to send you, you know, mentally crazy if you're not able to handle that. Does it open the doorway of consciousness? Yes, it might, but I think this broader meaning is what we need to take away from this. And, you know, usually I think about things in this conclusion about how we can handle our experiences in life in a way that makes it active and consciously working with it, as opposed to resisting it or fearing it. And I think with Jupiter and Uranus, this is the shock of the new. This is something we didn't expect. This is challenging our views, and shocking as it may be, we can work with it, you know, especially if we don't look backwards too much and we look at what doorways it opens up, what pathways it opens up. And so I really want to leave you with that thought that however disturbing this period of the year may be, or however fantastic this period of the year may be, if we think about it in terms of opening up and moving forward and that kind of thing, and embracing it as opposed to pushing it away or resisting it, I think that's a healthy thing and something that will certainly keep us sane. So thank you for being with me in yet another long celestial journey. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing. I look forward to the next time I see you again. Bye for now.